buttons to click. It's crazy.
So we're just hanging tight here then, right?
Yeah. Okay. You can go ahead and ask your questions or what have you. Oh, hi. Hi. What is that? Impossible. Okay. Hey. Hi. Thank you guys for joining. Okay. So today there's a lot to cover in a short amount of time. And in the fireside, we're going to go into more detail about these. But because of the stuff that's going on astrologically, I wanted to touch on a few things. One, I want to touch on retrogrades. Two, I want to touch on Jupiter and Rahu for our 2023, if you haven't heard about that. And three, I want to talk about eclipses. In the fireside, we're going to go into more depth in each of these. But I kind of was like, a lot of times people are like, why aren't you making such a big deal about the retrograde? Why aren't you making such a big deal about the eclipses? Why aren't you making such a big deal about these things, right? And let's just be honest. It's because the reality is everything dramatically comes from your own birth chart. Okay. And so these things, yes, they're happening. Hi, Faza. What is that? Faza 684. Hey. But with all these things, they do matter. And so when we are looking at retrogrades, retrograde has like this terrible rap. And the reality is it's not bad for everybody. In fact, retrograde is amazing for me. When I go into a retrograde, I get a lot done and things are fantastic and stuff clears out. So right now we're in Mercury retrograde. It started on the 21st. It's going until the 14th of next month. And then our next one is going to be in August. It continuously cycles. The reason people track it, hey Anna, hi. The reason people track it is because it is one of the most frequent retrogrades. In fact, we have a Pluto retrograde coming up sorry, I got distracted. Fraza 684. What is this all about? Oh, the firesides are when we get together and talk about spirituality in the universe, from astrology to spirituality and different practices and different events around the world. Hey, Stephanie. Hi. So it's just a place where you bring our whole mind, body, and spirit together. Sometimes, actually, next week, we're probably going to be talking about some food because I am going to be unboxing and sharing with everyone my Tower Gardens. So, okay. So anyways, back to what we were talking about. So sorry. I'm trying to get a lot in like this 15, 20 minutes. And because I love you guys and I think it's important to have. So again, Mercury retrograde is not bad. You hear these like fear stories. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I hate living in fear. Last week was enough for me. Let me just tell you, that's going to lead into the whole eclipse story and this retrograde and why it's so important to check your own chart. I had fortunately looked at my chart and I knew I was going to have a medical problem. I just had no idea it was going to be so impactful. So sorry I missed our Thursday live, everyone, for our sadhana. So when we are looking at the retrograde, though, people will tell you, like, don't sign anything, pretty much don't do anything important. Well, that's not necessarily true. Somebody depending on how Mercury retrograde affects them, they will actually be in a peak of a time when they're going to be like so amazing and powerful because they're going to be more detailed, more focused, right? So for each person, it's different. But the reality is of a retrograde is planets behaving differently. And if you go into the astrology course, and those of you who have, you know why, right? The planet and the way it's traveling. But the reality is Mercury retrograde in the large scale of mundane astrology doesn't matter, which I know is not what everyone wants to hear because we love all of these really interesting things and these really exciting things people tell us during all of this time. But when you pay attention to how Mercury retrograde affects you, that's what's important. And that's the big takeaway on all of this today. When you look at Mercury retrograde in your chart and see how it's affecting you, that opens up a whole nother amount of like really doing your own predictions or having an astrologer do your predictions. If you have an astrology journal, and of course, like I do, I track things like, okay, this is what was happening on the 19th when my whole world flipped upside down more than I had anticipated. And, maybe if I had more time, I would have spent more time reading my chart and seeing this, but I didn't. But on the 19th, as we're coming into energy, remember about 3 days before things, the energy starts coming. And depending on the situation, it can be even more expansive, which we're going to get to here in a minute in eclipses. But when you pay attention to that yourself, it gives you the opportunity to start tracking it. Oh, Mercury retrograde went here and then this happened. Maybe it's not as traumatic for you. And so you can watch the whole retrograde cycle and see how it's unfolding for you. And as you see how that's unfolding for you, maybe then you can start piecing things together and then you can start better tracking how this is going to impact you. I specifically knew because of how mine was lining up that it was going to be a medical thing, right? That's just a given. Mine also lines up with large purchases. So they tell you don't make large purchases during those times. Well, that's when I need to make large purchases and typically I'm pulling the trigger on them. And I happen to be excruciating during those contract times. People hate me. I read the whole damn thing. The only time I could probably sit still is during a Mercury retrograde. And I don't really sleep because I am so focused, right? So like I was saying, depending on how it's working with planets in your chart, depends on how it's going to work for you. Okay, now I want to talk about Jupiter and Rahu. And I know this is going fast and you might have to rewatch this video. It's cool. Take notes. I know it's a lot to consume. I would like to touch on this that I didn't touch on before. And it's really important to touch on because as we're coming into the fall, we're going to see this more and more. But there's a Jupiter Rahu in 2023. And right now we've got this Aries energy that's been coming and it's a part of it. And now, of course, we're in Taurus. And so it's a little different. And so I just kind of wanted to like bring it up because this is going to be an ongoing pattern. Hey, Becky. Hey, hi. Okay. This is a time when we've got teacher lessons. So Jupiter is called the guru, and that is from Vedic astrology. When we look at that, we look at this being a time of Jupiter being about teaching, Jupiter being about children, protection, abundance of anything. So let me clarify abundance. When I talk about abundance, I'm not saying we're all going to need to go buy lotto tickets. Abundance comes in different forms. Again, this comes back to your own personal astrology chart. If you don't have yours, drop us a message. I will hook you up and I will get you your chart. Just let me know if you want the Western or Vedic chart. Otherwise, I might send you the wrong one. But you definitely go in and request your chart. If you haven't seen your chart, it depends on your chart, where this is falling for you and what house it's in for where that abundance is going to be. So you could have financial abundance. You could have partnership abundance. You could have health abundance. You could have attention abundance, right? Where you're like getting in the limelight. There's different ways this comes out for different people. So when we're looking at this, with this Aries energy, that's where this protection and security comes in. Your agility gets on point. You have impulses. You have a lot of physical stuff going on. This is also part of what triggered my stuff. But when you're looking at that, think of all those Aries energies, right? Especially those of you who are members of, hi, Diana. Nice to see you. So when you're getting in, like those people that are in Fireside, like look up your chart, right? Becky, yeah, you're Aries. That is awesome. So Becky, you probably felt this. There was just a lot of energy, right? And then this also comes with the eclipse. So it's a lot of opportunity for these, like this physical energy, these Aries things where we're pushing forward, we're driving, we're making things happen. We have impulses and we're doing it, right? It's as you know, in the astrology certification course, again, those of you that are in the Fireside, you have that. It's all about that like V8 engine and moving forward. And Becky says, yes, I did. Yeah, I'm sure. My daughter is an Aries and she was like calling me every day. And I'm like, okay, let's do some box breathing, honey. Now, granted, some amazing things happened for her during this time. During this time, she got like a promotion, like things that had been stuck in her way were like clearing, like a massive awesomeness that she really needed was coming through. Um, but when we're looking at Jupiter and Rahu in 2023, this is this awesome opportunity for abundance. Once this conjunction happens, we're going to see this massive transition that we're already seeing. Remember, I was saying like energies expand at different levels. Well, when we're looking at this, for those of you who don't know or who are in Western astrology, Rahu and Ketu are the north and south nodes. So I'm sorry I didn't clarify that earlier. I just realized I better do that now. Yes, Becky, exactly. Removing the past. Yeah. Before this particular energy started coming in with the eclipse, with the retrograde, with the Jupiter and Rahu, we set my daughter up with a plan and she had her daily practices and these things she was working on because they're important. And it did. It cleared her whole path for her. And so all of the remedies worked. And I'm super excited. But this is all about expansion, right? And this is going to keep going. Like we're talking like October, November timeframe. This is going to keep going. This is all about expansion for how it is in your heart or chart. Heart. Well, I guess your heart, depending on where it is in your chart. But it is all that mind, body, spirit. Right? You're going to see a lot of people seeking expansion. And so, like I said, next week, we're going to be talking about diet and how all the diets are crap. And that's a whole nother bag of stuff that we'll get into next week. But you're going to see a lot of people traveling to foreign countries because these things that were holding them from being able to travel are going to open up if they had wanted to do that, if that's where it's falling in their chart. So you're going to see lots of people traveling. You're going to see lots of people learning. You're going to see lots of people seeking natural healing because like Becky was saying, Becky, you were so spot on. This is getting rid of old and expanding into the future. So you see where this retrograde ties in, where this Jupiter and Rahu tie in. Now let's touch on the eclipse, which I totally realize I only have a couple minutes left and I have so much to say about the eclipse. So bear with me. We'll dive into the backstage of Fireside. For those of you who are members, don't forget to pop over to the Zoom and backstage when this is over, because we're going to go into more detail about this eclipse. So we just had an eclipse, right? And everyone's just like, eclipse, why aren't you talking about the eclipse? The eclipse is essentially the expansion, the intensity of moons, new moons and full moons. So when we are looking at this eclipse we just had, there's different characters and different things that come into place, right? It being on an angle. In addition to that, we are looking at situations where the eclipse is moving on from narcissistic abuse in children. There you go, Becky. That's awesome. I'm glad for you. That is super awesome. That's what it's like when you start using the energies. And if you just know about them and you're aware of them, then you can turn them into like these powerhouses. And I love that for you, Becky. I so love that. Okay. So eclipses, they happen every 6 months. And the exact same eclipse happens every 19 years. Yeah, it's kind of crazy, right? So when you're looking at this, essentially look at the new moon and the full moon and realize that eclipse is supercharging it. So we just had a new moon. Now we're moving into a full moon. So think about that energy. So it was epic this time. Hey, Paula, thanks for joining. So it was epic this time for us to be able to look and see what was going on. So now we're going to hop into the backstage in the Fireside. I love you all. I'm going to start posting more of the astrology videos on the YouTube channel and going in depth about things. The first one I'm going to post is Taurus. So I'll get the planets up. I'll get the signs up. I'll put up a link too for those of you on YouTube to get your chart, because honestly, I don't know where the hell it is right now. I think if like you click on more about us or something, it's in there. But there's information I need to pull your chart. So I'll make sure I get all of that up for you. But thank you for joining. Sorry it went so fast. Rewatch this when you have a chance. And I love that you're all here. And now for the rest of us, we are going to skip back in to the Fireside backstage. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.